Welcome back to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. I am Steven Stamp with Adam Levy, and Greg Beecher from Blue Squatch is moderating / producing / directing. And what a fun first part of the show it was, doing the Fantasy Sixes draft for the concept of an NLL All-Star Weekend. And that was an absolute blast having Dan Arestia and Chris Rosenthal with us. But we are back to you, Adam, and me, Steven. And we are ready to make our picks after last week was an interesting week, right? For everybody. You were like, oh, I had a terrible weekend. I had a terrible Friday night. I went 0-3 on Friday night. I was like, last week the week before I did really well. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, of course I figured it out. No. 0-3 on Friday. And then Saturday I bounced back, got all four. You wound up at 3-4. You can see the season marks there. So, we're going to get into it this week. And Adam, you want to start with the first pick this week? Actually, we got to get up you can see the results from last week. They're all there for you to take a peek at. But this is what we're picking this week. And we've been so deep into getting our Sixes teams ready to draft. Just kidding. We actually didn't have that much time for it because there's so much happening with all the trades, which normally would be highlighting the show. Mitch DeSnew and Chris Corbeil to Philadelphia in exchange for 2025 first. Of course, the huge one, Nick Rose going to Calgary, along with Tyler Hendricks and a fourth-round pick. I don't even know which year that was, actually, but whatever, it's a fourth. I
think it was 2025.
Was it? Yeah, that makes sense. So, and Toronto in return got quite a haul, a first in the loaded 2026 draft.
Yep.
Robert Hudson, a former 6th overall pick, and Goa Abrams, who will help them in net because they, without Rosie, they're going to have Troy Holochuk and Go Abrams. That is basically, Nick Rose is a free agent, unrestricted free agent this year, can reject the franchise tag. So he basically could go back to Toronto, but that's also a trial because they love Troy Holochuk. And that's a 7-game trial for him to see if he can be the goalie of the present as well as the goalie of the future.
Yeah. It'll be so interesting to see how all these trades, and it does sound like the Rock are trying to make more deals to get some of the other unrestricted free agents shipped somewhere else, get some stuff in return. I mean, it is I've been thinking about it, and you should expect this from Jamie Dowick as a poker player. He obviously is taking a gamble by saying, hey, all of these unrestricted free agents, we'll offer him the best deal, or there's enough loyalty that they'll all come back. And I'm not saying that they won't, but it is interesting to take that risk, but at least he is getting a lot of pieces in return. And I know the Toronto Rock had posted the amount of draft picks they have in 2025 and 2026, and it is quite the haul.
Yeah, and they're good drafts. I mean, 2026 and 27 in particular are great drafts. The other trade, of course, Holden Cattoni going from Philadelphia to Las Vegas, and in return, Shane Simpson coming. I found that one a bit surprising. You understand the Toronto ones because they are UFAs. They can all come back. All Corbeil, DeSnew, Rose, they can all come back if they want. But that's a real trade. That's no form of rental right there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think that as Coach Williams has said to me and to others, they really have been trying to figure out the right formula, the right pieces to make everything work. And they've been trying, and you have to give GM Williams credit for all the moves that he is making. Interesting little nugget I had put out that Hammer Jackson actually 6-1 in the last 7 games he's played with his teams, both Vancouver and now Las Vegas. So,
wow.
It's being a GM, being a coach isn't easy in this league. 14 teams that are completely stacked. We saw that in our Sixes draft, how competitive it can get with those rosters. So I applaud Coach Williams for the effort he's put in.
Yeah, I was a little surprised from Philly's perspective on that one because they've just added DeSnew and Corbeil. And, I was a little surprised they went for another D guy. Now, their offense has been so loaded, but Holden Cattoni, he's top 15 in the league in goals and points, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too much away from my Inside Lacrosse piece that will be coming out later today on the moves that Philadelphia is making. But, it's pretty evident that defense in transition has been the glaring issue for them, and the offense is so stacked. And, maybe this opens up more opportunities for Brendan O'Neill to be Brendan O'Neill, which has been an amazingly fun project to watch.
Maybe with Liam Patton out now, you were mentioning he was injured.
Yep.
Maybe that push them a little bit. I don't know how long that's going to be. Hopefully not too long.
Mhm.
The other one that everyone's talking about now is immediately with Zed Williams being out, and we're not sure how long, but it didn't look good when he was leaving. Is Tom Schreiber a UFA? Because he could definitely reject the tag. Yeah. So does Schreiber go to Colorado?
Yep.
He does?
Yeah. It would be amazing. I mean, I've heard that from a handful of people.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to see if that does take place. Yeah, I mean, Jamie is, and then also Brad Cree has been one of those guys being mentioned. It sounds like Halifax is the front runner at this point for him. What do they do with the deal? But yeah, those unrestricted free agents at Toronto right now, they all look like, they'll be someplace else until next season at least.
Jamie Dawick playing a bit of kingmaker in the NLL with having an impact on these rosters with the Toronto Rock. I think it's a really good strategy. You don't see it a lot, but it's just a very unusual circumstance with Toronto sitting at 3-8, which nobody thought was going to happen. I guess it was after the Georgia game, right? That things really coalesced. Like, okay, well, we just lost this. We're 3-8. It's going to be tough to make the playoffs. We're going to make a run. So we should get to our picks. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I believe one of the guys sitting here picked them to come in first.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Wait, was it me? No, okay, that's fine. Before I start chirping.
I was still, even in hindsight, I stick to that, because had we known that everyone was going to be out for as long as they were going to be out, and that things were going to be a real struggle. And that actually, to be honest, and this is why the strategy that Jamie is implementing is so critical, is because, on the face of it, if your team was that battered up, and he even said that on I think it's called Rock Total Access. I don't know the exact name of their podcast, but they were injured and they did go 0-5, but this wasn't a typical 0-5. And so and also even with the losses that they've had, they've been so close. So this is definitely not a 3-8 team that's like really in the dumps. So I still would have believed that they would have been first. I wish they had done better. I know Toronto Rock fans had, but yes, I think, are you ready for the pick, Stamper?
Just about. I was going to say, I did take Buffalo to come first, so I feel pretty good about that. I had Saskatchewan. I had Toronto second as well. I had Saskatchewan to come higher than anybody else in our picks. I didn't at IL Indoor. I had them fourth, and looking like they have a good chance to be higher than that. But I also did pick Albany to win the NLL finals. So I had to say that quietly because that obviously didn't work out. I played a little heavy on that one. So, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to pick these things. Speaking of which,
we don't know. Albany still might make the finals. That's still up for debate. I don't think we are mathematically out of it yet.
Yeah, they could. Okay, Greg. I've been on the Albany train, on the Firewolves train. I am pretty sure I'm off it now. And if they do come back, I'm going to be horrified because, well, I'll be happy for them, obviously. You want everyone to succeed and do well. But if I get off the train and then all of a sudden the train picks up all the momentum in the world, well, we'll just pretend this conversation never happened and I stayed with them the whole time. Georgia at Ottawa.
Yes. So I'll start things off if that's cool, Stamper. And
so cool.
Part of this, and this is the interesting thing about picking on this show, especially after we've been having these conversations. And I'm definitely swayed now by the Sixes draft that just took place, because I feel like I wasn't being as practical in my thinking as I want to be in this pick. And so I wish that I had picked Jeff Teat in the Sixes draft, and now I feel like I'm going to pick Jeff Teat and the Ottawa Black Bears in this matchup to make up for my mistake.
Okay. I kind of wish I'd picked Josh Byrne instead of taking Brett Dobson first, although Brett Dobson, again, it's a great pick. I think I got to take it. He's going to probably be the MVP of this fantasy tournament, right? Because he's going to make all those huge saves, and we're going to win games. Dan Arestia is trying to win games 30-28. We're going to win games 23-18.
Yeah.
With Curtis Dixon scoring a ton of goals, we're going to be good. I love my team. love my team. Okay, Georgia and Ottawa. It's so hard, and it's funny because I do have Dobson. I think he's terrific. He's not having his best season. Zach Higgins is the best goalie in the league this year, without question. I'm going to go with Ottawa for this one.
Well, let's just say, let's give credit for where credit is due. Brett Dobson, 55 saves and a caused turnover last week against Toronto. So very impressive. But I think to your point, like we need more of not necessarily that kind of play, but something closer to that on a consistent level. So that would be fantastic.
I don't know if you heard, but Brett Dobson has already received baskets of mini muffins from Philadelphia and who else got some of the Toronto players? The teams that are getting the Toronto players are sending him mini muffins.
Is that like real? Is that
no, not at all. Not even remotely.
Oh, I was going to be like, that is some amazing reporting.
Thanks. That would be good. It should probably happen now. So
yes,
guys, if you could make that happen, that'd be great. Maybe we'll shoot Paul Day a text and say, just send him some mini muffins. So we move on. I guess it's going to be my turn with Albany at Rochester. This is tough because I've picked Rochester a couple of times for some upsets, and one of them I got off and they won big, and I was so disappointed in myself. Then I picked them, and they did not do well when I picked them for the big upset against Saskatchewan. But I just think Albany is really coming together. They've got, to me, Colton Watkinson and Jackson Nissamura being back is huge. I think they're coming together and looking more like the team we expected coming off of last season's great year. I'm going to go with Albany this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good game. And again, it's like, which Rylan Hartley are we going to see? But Rochester, man, their offense looks great. I also, again, been swayed by outside forces. Thomas McConvey is one of the two guests on the Lacrosse Matrix podcast this week. Really had such a great conversation with him. So go check that episode out. It's going to drop today. You know what? I'm going to go Rochester. I like Albany a lot, and I think you're right. Again, it's one of those teams that has been snake bitten by injuries that you can't blame their record. And again, the tough losses for Albany on everything. But, I think that, in really looking over Rochester's schedule, I think that that's important when we look at their 5-7 record. 2 games against Buffalo, 2 games against Halifax, 2 games a game against Georgia, games against San Diego. It's been I'm mixing some of the schedule up there, but anyway, they've 2 games against Saskatchewan is what I meant to say.
Right.
So they have played the cream of the crop this season and are still 5-7. So I'm going to go Rochester.
And I think, it's interesting that you didn't tell me before that McConvey was on the Lacrosse Matrix and getting the Levi bump this week.
True.
I'm not sure. That was cunning.
Well, I don't know how real the Levi bump has been this season, but very, happy if it does come true because that gets more viewers and listeners to the podcast.
There you go. Okay, so I guess you're up for Buffalo at Saskatchewan. Battle of the Titans, the top 2 teams in the league. Who you got this week between these 2 powerhouses?
I really hope this ends up being the game of the year like many of us want it to be. And it's very unfortunate. I guess now's a better time than ever again to just reaffirm with you that I am going away for the weekend and will not be able to watch any of these games.
Right.
So that is really sad. But I will be having an amazing time in San Diego with my wife, Nikki. So I won't be too sad to be missing those.
And happy anniversary to the 2 of you for whatever it is that you're celebrating. I know you 2 celebrate a lot of things, which I think is super cool. So enjoy that weekend.
So this is the big one. I mean, our wedding anniversary is March 25th, but we're going to an event that's taking place in early March or this weekend. So this is part of that celebration. 5 years of being married together. So one of those early milestones. I'm just going to say that I think that the Rush are going to win this game. I think it's going to be an incredible battle. I cannot wait for it. It will be interesting to see with the injuries on defense that Buffalo has right now that they haven't found replacements for yet. There's been some talks that they might make some moves before the deadline to try and find a replacement. It's particularly for Matt Spanger. We don't know about Dylan Robinson and the length that he'll be out. But I'm going to go with the Rush. Again, what I should have done the other week, just sticking with my team that I said was going to be one of those elite teams this year. And so I'm going to say the Rush.
Yeah, it's interesting when you bring up, Buffalo with the injuries, and do they fill in? I wonder if they were in the running to get Mitch Desnew and bring him back to Buffalo for a bit, because he was a guy that really gained a lot of attention when he went to Toronto, but he was so good with Buffalo already. I think people just hadn't noticed as much. 2022 Defender of the Year. So Buffalo, yeah, that's an interesting one. This should be such a great game. Can't wait to see this one. I am I'm going to go with the Rush as well. I think great game. I think wow. How about Saskatchewan? That would move them into first, right? Because they're 9-2 and Buffalo's
first.
Yeah,
and
this is the first place game. I wonder how many other people are, because I was the only one in our group that picked it. So I'm really hoping you guys are both right this week. But the Rush, that surprised me when when you said it and then Adam said it. When Levi said it first, I was like, hang on, did I hear that right? I thought maybe I wasn't paying attention, and then I saw Charity put the her new little icons, which I do love.
Which are fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you can tell when she's involved in it and versus what I've made. I'll just say that and step out of the show now.
Because it looks better? Yeah. Fair enough. Well done, Charity. Thanks. I meant to mention those because I saw those. They look fantastic. Going to Denver for Calgary versus Colorado. And this one, this is one of those rivalries that goes way back, and huge results in playoffs over the years. I am going to, oh boy. How quickly does Nick Rose have an impact? Rose and Ward against each other. I'm going to go Calgary. Yeah, I was kind of leaning Colorado, but I'm taking Calgary. I think Rosie steps right in. He's familiar with a lot of those guys.
Do you think that he's going to be one of those impact players? Do you think he has a little bit of adjustment?
Well, he's been playing the game so long. And he's made so many adjustments through his career that I think he'll be able to make any adjustment he needs to without it really being a huge issue. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this game is the one where he's getting all the kinks out and Colorado blows him out of the water, and then he comes back against Buffalo and it is great, which obviously the Buffalo games are a big part of why Calgary got him, right? But I've made my pick. I'm staying with it. I will not waffle anymore because it doesn't work out when I do. Or at least I won't give in to the waffle. I'm going to go with Calgary.
So I'm going to look a little bit into the data just because I was curious as you were talking about the battles between Nick Rose and Dylan Ward. And Nick Rose has won the last 3 of those battles, although they've been closer games. 2 of those games decided by 1 goal. I think that, again, when I'm talking as a writer, the story of Nick Rose coming in and really making the difference and the impact, and that to be compounded with Curtis Dixon and Dane Doby playing like absolute rock stars right now, on pace each for 50-plus goals. They'd be only the 3rd teammates in NLL history to have 50 goals each in an NLL season. So it really just feel like, Mike Board feels like this is the moment. And he did say something very interesting to me, because I know that I've been starting to publicly apologize to the Roughnecks fans and to the Roughnecks players for not picking them and not thinking they would do great. They have proved us wrong. And he was saying that, it's tough to be a prognosticator. It's tough to make those picks, especially in the preseason. He claims that they don't look at those, but I never trust a GM, a player, or a coach when they say they haven't seen any of our stuff out there talking about their teams. But I think that, they have been a great story, and I think Rose is only going to help that.
So you're picking?
I'm picking Calgary.
Okay. When you paused there, I was like, I thought you were going to say Colorado and just mess everybody up.
Who was it? Pat McAfee did that on a show. He riled up the Georgia fans during the college football season. And then it was them versus Alabama. And then he said, "Give me Alabama." And then everyone was like, "Boo, you suck." And no, but I'm not going to do that.
Okay. Well, you do get to pick the final game of the week first. So you got Halifax at Las Vegas.
Yeah, people aren't talking enough about this. And, obviously there's been so many different moves going on, so it might have been overshadowed a little bit. But this is the suspected return of Tyson Bell to the Halifax Thunderbirds.
Right.
His suspension is up. So he could be back. I heard from the Halifax Thunderbirds that it is. There's some physicals and other things that he's going to go through. They're just going to make sure that he's ready to go. But I imagine that will be all set, and that will be just another boost to a team that is the hottest team next to the Saskatchewan Rush right now in the Halifax Thunderbirds. And with Vegas, yes, they make that move for Holden Cattoni, but Thunderbirds, I think, are too good right now. I could never pick against them, and I really do think that them. I'm going to say San Diego, Saskatchewan, and Buffalo are my top 4 teams in the NLL right now. They all just look so talented. And really, again, if San Diego had beaten Buffalo for a second time last week, we'd be talking about them in a much different way.
True. So you've got Halifax. I love the addition of Holden Cattoni for Vegas. Yeah, I mean, he's going to score a bunch, and I mean, I think he's going to create opportunities for, just because of his shooting. He's such a great shooter that it affects how they can play guys. So I think that Casey Jackson, and I mean Jack Hanna's already kind of doing everything. Jonathan Donville, I think those guys are all going to thrive as well. But yeah, Halifax is playing really well, and I'm going to have to go with the Thunderbirds on this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, that Thunderbirds offense is really coming together with some great pieces. It's very interesting, obviously, in the third year of this project to see how things are coming together. Very excited for Holden and for him to, prove himself in Las Vegas. So that'll be very interesting. I mean, all these trades, all these moves, this is really shaping up to be one of the best trade deadline. It's not the trade deadline, but the trade deadline kind of areas, kind of periods, I guess I should say, that we've seen in a little bit with all the big names and everything moving. So very exciting.
The trade deadline shadow looming over the shoulders of GMs around the National Lacrosse League. The trade deadline isn't until March 10th at 3 p.m. It is a bit earlier this year after week 15 instead of week 16 as it was last year, but maybe it being earlier has sparked this flurry of moves. We'll see, and we'll see how we fare this weekend, week 14 of the National Lacrosse League season. Week 4, well, I don't know what week it is, a bit wobbled because we didn't get started right 15. With the season, but
we actually did. We started we started the week early. We did a week before, so we're week 15. Oh, yeah. I saved the files by the ITWOBL episode, so that's the only reason I know.
Oh,
but
well,
our 2 ITWOBL questions essentially from the viewers today, though, would be, one, is Tyson Bell going to be able to get across the bridge, or is he going to be able to come into the United States with what's going on legally, because the suspension may be up, but we've heard rumors from some guys that the bigger issue is him getting back into the United States to play. And 2, have you guys heard any rumors about Albany with trades? Are they pretty well set with what they've got? You think they won't be moving anybody?
You want to take the first one? I'll take the second one.
Yeah, I mean, so you're taking the first one? Sorry. And then
no, you're taking the first one.
Taking the first one.
You're answering Tyson Bell coming across the bridge.
So I know that this has been a very difficult time for Tyson, and I want to, not harp on this too much, but I do think that, with the latest was that the court date got postponed again until April. I think that's going to keep getting postponed until after the season, I'm sure. And I don't imagine that he'll have trouble getting over the border. I don't necessarily know. These days, the border is a very tricky situation, more so than it's been in years past. But those work visas really do a wonder for these guys, and so I think that could help.
And in terms of Albany, they are not going to be making. I wouldn't say they're not going to make any moves, but I know they're not looking at making a lot of moves. For one thing, they only have one player who can be in the situation of a free agent, unrestricted free agent who can reject the franchise tag. That's Callum Crawford, who hasn't been playing. So I don't know. I mean, if somebody wanted to tag Callum Crawford, I'm sure they would listen to offers for him, but I think Callum's pretty happy being with them if he can play. But I mean, there's nobody else that they can send as kind of a rental in that free agent situation. And they they've suffered all the injuries. They like the team that they have going forward. The management is all in on continuing on the path. And I think they're disappointed in this season, but they're not they're not punting on this group that they built, so they're not going to be big sellers.
Yeah, it would be interesting to look at Rochester, Vancouver, and Ottawa, even with where they are in the standings right now, and with the teams around them making moves. I don't know enough off the top of my head who I would be trading. I mean, it seems like Rochester definitely has been making some moves that they feel have been helpful to them. But Vancouver, I know that they probably feel a little hurt that the Roughnecks made a goalie deal, and it wasn't for Christian Del Bianco with Vancouver. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see any of those three teams and see what happens.
Yeah, and that'll wrap things up. Any other questions, Greg?
Well, I guess with that, as he was just talking about Del Bianco, what effect does this have? I mean, obviously it's got a huge impact, but with the Rose trade, what does that look like for next year? I don't know like what Rose's contract situation is or anything.
So he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. He can reject the franchise tag because he's 33 years old or older. So he can go anywhere he wants. I think it's highly unlikely he stays with Calgary unless he has a really, just loves it. But I mean, he works at the Toronto Rock Athletic Center. He actually kind of runs the Toronto Rock Athletic Center. He's the manager or whatever. I can't see him not going back. The only thing is, if Troy Holochuk rips it up, if he's fantastic down the stretch, at some point, I mean, Nick Rose is 37, 36. At some point you have to have a succession plan. So when do they move on? I don't think they're ready to pull the chute on Nick Rose, though. He's had, this year hasn't been his best, but the previous 4 seasons were his best 4 in the league. So I don't think they're just like, we're done with Rosie. I think there's a good chance he's back, but we'll see how Holochuk does. I think more impact is how well Aiden Walsh is playing for Vancouver. I mean, if you're Vancouver, do you need Christian Del Bianco? And obviously, everyone would love to have Christian Del Bianco on their team. He's a great goalie, probably the best on the planet. But it's a matter of what's the difference. Where is the variation? Like, how much better is Christian Del Bianco than Aiden Walsh?
How much are you giving up for him? Because
how much are you going to give up for that? Yeah. Exactly. Because some of the names we were throwing around, we've said from the beginning we don't think Owen Grant is on the table. But Braden Laity, for sure. Ryan Martell, some of these guys, like there could be key players that Calgary could be asking for. And if you're Kurt Malosky in Vancouver, you're saying, how much better is Christian Del Bianco that it's worth giving up these guys? I don't think Braden Laity's going anywhere at this point. A lot of these players, I just don't think at this point you give up. And as each year goes on, I mean, Christian Del Bianco is still a young guy. He's in his late 20s. But I mean, as each year goes on, Aiden Walsh is probably just going to get better. Maybe that gap shrinks even more. So I think, I think the market for that trade has actually changed substantially. Not so much just because of the Rose deal.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody about this yesterday, and I'm not sure if I want to name who it was, but anyway, they had suggested that maybe a 3-team deal would be the way to get that done, involve someone else. But yeah, from what it seems is that Calgary has been asking, and rightfully so, has been asking for a lot in return for Christian Del Bianco. And it's been great. I have to say, I've been loving seeing Christian feel free and loose to express his feelings on social media and now on his new podcast. That's been very cool to see that. So, but it's also at the same time just crazy, to take a line that Deanna Restia was saying in our Sixes draft earlier about how Jeff Teat went 5th and how it's like crazy how that happened. Well, it's almost crazy that we're talking about, if Troy Holochuk does this and then for Rose, or if Aiden Walsh plays this well, there's no Del Bianco. We're talking about Christian Del Bianco here. Like, this is someone's got to do something for him.
Yeah. I mean, probably the best goalie on the planet. Definitely the best passing goalie.
Oh, he's unreal.
On the planet, right?
And I think what's been interesting, and when I spoke to him last, this was actually on the Lacrosse Matrix podcast. He was saying that, in the Arena Lacrosse League, things are so different because he is still playing for the Grizzlies there out in the West, in the Vancouver area, that, he's able to try certain things. He's able to take certain risks. And that can be a very empowering and creative space to be in when you're an NLL goaltender, to know, hey, I tried this. I didn't have any opportunity to do that before. Now I know I can do it. I've practiced it, and I can incorporate that into my already incredible game. So, I know the talent level isn't the same as the NLL, but I think as a creative project and keeping him in shape, it's a great thing for him.
So you're saying he could try all these things, come back and be even better than he was?
Yes.
That's scary.
That's really scary.
Yeah. Greg, other questions?
No, that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks, guys, so much. I'm not sure whose idea this originally was to do the whole sixes, but I think it was your Stamper. I loved it. This was so cool. Hopefully we'll get better at it and it'll get prettier up, and now we'll have more and more of the names and keep them updated on the graphics. But no, that was a blast, because especially getting to see, I don't deal with field at all. That's the most field contact I've had since I found box lacrosse. So, I mean, that's the most I've talked about it. I do love the chance to kind of step out and get a look at it, because a lot of the things I didn't know the rules about. When you shoot out, it goes to the other team, like as you say it should be, not that whoever's closest to it. And I actually do agree with you there. I don't know. I think you kind of need a reward for hitting the net.
Yeah. Why do you get the ball when you miss the net? It makes no sense. What sport do you get that? What other sport? There's none.
Yeah.
It was actually Adam brought that idea to the table. We're not going to say where it came from exactly, but Adam did bring the idea to us, and he brought it to me because he was busy with a bunch of projects and was wondering if I wanted to take it on. We were going to try and do something last week, and actually it arose as saying, "Hey, there's this PLL tournament, these sixes teams. I wonder what kind of team you could put together from NLL players." So I started to just put together a team, and I mean it was Dane Smith and Jeff Cheat and Josh Byrne and Zach Courier, and within about 5 or 6 guys, I was like, "This isn't fair to the teams that just played, because we're just picking the 12 best players."
Well, to be fair, you picked 8 teams when you were trying to narrow it down for the players to send us. 6 guys apiece. You picked 8 teams to send us, and then to still get the other perspective where there was like 4 guys that, I love it. It's a chance for me to look into the guys that I don't normally get to talk to. I mean, everybody knows Josh Byrne and Dane Smith are doing great things, but to hear like the insight of Ryan Lee doesn't necessarily, he's not your guy with the ball, but what a difference he was last year. And like learning those little things is what makes it so exciting for me. So thanks, Adam, very much for sharing the idea with Stamper and then passing it along to us to be a part of it.
Hey, thank you, and to Charity for sorry.
She doesn't want to be on the camera ever though, or the mic. She just sits in the background now. She's starting to supervise me, so things will hopefully go smoother.
Have to admit, every once in a while we hear in the background telling you what you should be doing to sort things out, which is also much appreciated.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. We will do this again next week. I can't wait. It's been a pleasure as always. And next week we'll be back to our normal show where we just kind of go through a few highlights, the week in review, the picks, and then our awards. But we were talking about doing some lists. So everybody stay tuned, stay up to date. Adam, I know you've got a ton of stuff. So if you would like to tell us where everybody can find all your stuff, Stamper, we'll let you tell everybody how to find you guys at Inside Lacrosse, where you guys can stay up to date with all the trades and everything else that's going on. And I'll shut up until the show's over. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, I mean, just as a quick run through, as always, Stamper and I have been doing some great coverage both on social media and for IL Indoor on all the stuff that's been going down. Stamper, your musings are coming up, I believe, soon. We've got a piece that I'm putting together right now on the Wings and how they've looked at their deals that they've made. Obviously, the latest piece that was up, Stamper first and the IL Indoor crew put up the initial Toronto trade, but then there was more reaction from Mike Board, Nick Rose, and others. Like I said, 2 episodes of the Lacrosse Matrix podcast. Thomas McConvey and Paul Dawson is the other one. Paul's just such a good dude. We talked a lot about his block shots, as he is now officially, as of today, although this will go back and forth with him and Robert Hope, but right now, Paul Dawson, the all-time leader in block shots with 67. Although I had to ask him, even because block shots have only been tracked since 2001, the 2021 season, how many block shots does he actually think he's had in his career since 2007? So we tried to come up and do the math there. It's a lot.
Has it changed a lot how much he blocks shots? Because it seems like it's more of a recent fad.
So it has gone up actually each and every year for him. So that is interesting to see, but he has always been that fearless, selfless guy who plays gritty. So it would have been interesting to see what his numbers would have been throughout his career. But yeah, it is interesting that his numbers have gone up. But that also might be from the fact, because I feel like so many guys numbers are up. It's like there's so many guys who are on pace to break the record, and that was the same last year. So maybe the NLL statisticians are giving more block shots than in the past.
Maybe they should focus more on getting the cost turnover numbers correct.
No comment from me on that one.
Okay. I just think that cost turnovers are so important and so valuable, and they don't. I mean, you'll see one game there'll be like 3 cost turnovers for a team. I'm pretty sure they cause more than 3 turnovers. Another game a team might have 12 or something. I'd like to see that a bit more consistent. Although in the end, it seems to work out pretty well. I mean, we know guys like Matt Hosk and Ryan Dukes are causing a lot of turnovers. Zach Currier, even when he's playing offense. But yeah. And what else you got? That's not everything, right? For you.
For me,
we may not have time to talk about everything you're doing before your anniversary.
I don't know. It's been such a whirlwind. I think that is it. I might have another piece for IL Indoor coming up this week. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think that's everything for me.
Is that the Armenia piece?
It might that might be.
Yeah.
That might be on there.
We said it's inside the world of box lacrosse. Armenia now a part of that, and so many nations are getting to be part of this great game. It was so much fun this week doing the Sixes draft. Thanks again to Dan Arestia and Chris Rosenthal, my fellow Moon Bear, and thanks of course to Adam Levy. And you can see all my stuff on Inside Lacrosse on IL Indoor and here on ITWOBL. Thanks again to Greg and Charity for everything they do on the other side, and we'll be back next week, and I promise we won't go for almost 2 hours next week. I promise we won't. We really won't. And it's been great as always, and we'll see you next time here on Inside the World of Box Lacrosse.